That's right. Welcome and welcome back, everybody, to a top 5 priorities in the short term for Notre Dame football edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, you can find the program on YouTube. Do hit subscribe if you haven't yet. I'd appreciate that very much. Give the video a thumbs up as well. Twitter, search bar Always Irish or at Always Irish Inc. Emails, alwaysirish@gmail.com. Audio only, anywhere you want me. You can get me. Call in line 312-988-15. It's been good every single time I open up the phone lines. You guys deliver very thoughtful, insightful football stuff. I love it. You guys are great. So, now that the dust has settled on the staff hires, I want us to reset before we get into spring ball, talk a little bit about the short-term priorities within the program as I see them, okay? Now, I like doing these little checklists because you can go back, let some time pass, then you can go back, look at these lists, and analyze where have we made progress in these items, or which items have we fallen back in and need to focus on even more. I like monitoring these issues to see their progression or regression over time. So this isn't going to be over analytical. These are basic fundamental things, but they're the ones burning in my brain. So let's go over them and get into this. Keeping consistency with the prioritization of Coach Freeman in elite talent acquisition and accumulation is a huge, huge part of all this. I would argue it is the most important part of all this. I always hear about Notre Dame's good culture, and it was pretty good under Kelly. It's going to get even better and closer, more open, more familial, younger, all of that. So the culture, Marcus, and narrative was already good, and it's going to get even better. Here's the deal, guys. You could have the best culture in the world. If you don't have elite talent, you're not winning playoff games. So that's where the rubber meets the road with your culture. So you need a healthy, good culture at Notre Dame to win playoff games, but you need the talent, okay? So you can't have one without the other. You got to have both, or it isn't going to add up to be what you want it to be. So keeping that in mind, here's number 1. Continue to recruit and develop your program's areas of strengths to maintain them being strengths. Offensive line lineage, really good. Defensive line lineage recently, pretty good. Linebacker, rough in the Fiesta Bowl, injuries, all that kind of stuff. But you look at the recruiting in that area, especially in the last class, very, very good. Tight ends, running backs, I feel pretty good about that lineage in terms of production and recruiting as well. As I've said before, it's a lot easier to keep a program strength a strength through recruiting and development lineage. Offensive line is an example. Keep that going. All you got to do is show the Quentin Nelson highlight tapes, Ronnie Stanley, the Martins, McGlinchey, all these guys in the league doing great. It's easy to keep that recruiting momentum going when you put on the tape and it's all pros in the NFL from us at that position. I got news for you. We can't have that angle in recruiting when it comes to wide receivers or quarterbacks, right? So that's what I mean. You need to maintain your strengths. You cannot allow those to dip to focus on your weaknesses, because then you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Yeah, so that's what I mean by this. And we're going to get to the other parts of this. But you need to make sure as a program you maintain and do not drop off where you are being very successful at. Okay? That's number one. Maintain your strengths. Make them stronger. This should be easier to do than some of the other things I'm going to ask for. Okay? In that same vein comes item number 2. This is not optional. If Notre Dame wants to win playoff games, this is not optional. Now you notice, I'm very specific when I define my terms here. I'm not saying if you want to make the playoff, you got to do this, or you're not going to be able to win a lot of games the way we've been doing this. Nope. We've won a lot of games the last 5 years. I'm talking about winning playoff games. If Notre Dame's going to do that, they have no option but to vastly and rapidly improve the elite recruiting in the skill areas of your football team. Quarterback, wide receiver, safety, corners. That's what I consider skill guys, areas where we need to just get way better. Fast. Way better and fast. Our position groups in these areas recently are not and have not been good enough to win these biggest ball games in the biggest moments. Not an argument, not a debate. It's just a fact. We've all seen it. Quarterback, wide receiver, safety, corners. I need elite athletes all over those positions. I just do. So the refreshing thing is, unlike with Kelly, I know for a fact Marcus Freeman sees it the same way. Marcus Freeman knows, and it's been obvious if you follow Notre Dame recruiting, that the staff's made it a priority to get better in these areas. So that is a big deal with talent acquisition. If we don't get better at those spots, I don't care how good we are at all the other ones. You're not winning a playoff game. You're not. So that part of emphasis in recruiting in those areas has been made a priority. I appreciate that. Let's see the results. Here's number 3. Somebody's got to explain number 3 to me. Maybe somebody that works at Notre Dame, somebody's got to explain it to me because I don't understand this. I don't get it. Here's what I'm referring to. I've seen multiple interviews, read articles, Notre Dame people, and the question comes up. What areas existentially, fundamentally, practically, structurally, infrastructure, what does Notre Dame need to get better at in those areas to match up with the teams winning championships? When that question's asked, the first thing that always comes up is that football expansion program in the Goog to literally expand that building or build a new one or whatever, to give them more room, not only for the football players to practice, train, relax, whatever, but also to provide room for an expanded support staff that Marcus Freeman wants, a more robust recruiting department as far as administratively, other analysts, different people. He wants to make it a bigger operation. By the way, good idea. Up till a couple years ago, I know for a fact Ohio State had double the recruiting operation Notre Dame did in terms of people working in that office. How can you think you can compete with that when they have double the people you have attacking that job? How can you expect to compete like that? This also goes with the training table, the health advancements, the nutrition, all that. Marcus wants to expand all that. You know who else did too? Brian Kelly. This was a point of contention between Kelly and Swarbrick, and a part of what made Kelly start to maybe want to look elsewhere. Here's what I don't get. Explain it to me. Every time I'm in South Bend and I pull my happy ass up, what do I see? 8 more huge, beautiful buildings being built on campus that weren't being built the last time I was in town. Make one of them a football building. I don't get it. It makes no sense. How are they building all these buildings and expanding everything else and not giving the football program what they need to win? No offense to the science department or history or whatever, but nobody would care about your academics if it wasn't for the early football success at this university. That's a little known fact that Notre Dame intellectual elites won't admit. No one would care about the Notre Dame degree and the weight it carries if the football program wasn't what it is and didn't win as much as it did in Notre Dame's big early growth phase and get all the national acclaim and everything else. You would be a tiny independent Catholic school near a lake in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, without this football program. So Notre Dame's all about the academics. You have a responsibility to protect what makes the academics valuable. That degree would not be worth what it is today if it wasn't for football success. And I know a lot of the intellects over there don't like that fact. So instead of building another school building, build the football program what they need. This is not a modern football program. Notre Dame cannot be being held back by this physical structural infrastructure problem in the modern age of college football. It's ridiculous. All they do is print money at Notre Dame. Give the program what they need to compete. I have no patience for this. Oh, John, they expanded the stadium. That cost, you know what, $750 million or whatever. You know why they did that? More money coming in for Notre Dame. Sell those luxury suites. Have your wedding in that ballroom overlooking all that. All of that. That's for them, not the program. That's for Notre Dame to make more money. That's what that's about. Expand the Goog to give this program what they need to compete. I'm sick of it. Every single time I'm in town, there's another building, there's another building, there's another building. Make one of them for football. This cannot be an issue holding us back at this point. Get modern. This is ridiculous. Somebody ask Captain Jack what the damn holdup is. They print money at that place. Build the facility right. Here's number 4. I knew that was going to happen when I got into that one. Now I got no voice. Here's number 4. Smooth staff integration and transition to on-field practicality. There's a big feeling out calculation now. Now that you got your staff together, you know who it's going to be. Figure out whose strengths are strengths, who's good at this, bad at that, weaker at this, stronger at this, who's got a better personality for that than this. Figure all that out. Get to know each other. Learn all the strengths and weaknesses practically in recruiting. All that stuff even really, really good coaches are all going to have areas they're better at or weaker at. Figure all that out. The sooner this staff can streamline all of that and figure it out, the better they're going to be once games hit. So even Brian Kelly was talking about this at LSU this last week, about having to get to know his new staff and learn who can do what. Marcus's personality should help make that process go smoothly because he's so genuine and open, and he doesn't play games. He doesn't speak in code. It is what it is with him. So I'm hoping that will help move this part of the process along quickly and nicely. Okay? Here's number 5. Number 5 is a big deal to me. And it's something that nobody could calculate. But it's a big deal to me. And I think it matters at Notre Dame more in most places. Use Freeman's it factor personality to get more out of the group than it looks like you should be able to get when you look at the group on paper. That was a Lou Holtz specialty. He knew every button to push, every motivational tool, who he had to hug, who he had to be tough with, everything in between. Lou had a natural knack for knowing what levers to press and when to make the team come together, and the performance on the field was better than what it looked like it should be on paper. That is a huge deal, especially at Notre Dame, where you're not just able to get all the 5-star talent guys and just let them run wild. You got to do a lot more coaching. And emotionally and mentally, you got to all be on the same page. Use this with Marcus. It's his biggest gift. It's why he's here. He's got a lot of Lou in him in this regard about the way these guys relate to him, the way he's trying to motivate them, get the most out of them. This is an item Brian Kelly never figured out. In our biggest ball games with everything on the line, when can you say our team played their best game? They played above their talent level and won a big game. When can you say that? Oklahoma 2012 on the road in late October. That's about it. What other massive, huge game with everything on the line, the odds against you, the other team has more talent, and Kelly pressed all the right buttons and got us to rise above our talent, win the game? When? Tell me when. And I'm not listening if you're going to say Clemson, where the best player in the country wasn't playing in the ball game. No, that's not what I mean. So this part of it is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And I didn't feel like Kelly ever had the natural gifts it took to be able to relate to these guys to get what I want out of them. Marcus has that touch. He has that feel. I want to see it. And I want to see that come through. And I think it will. I just don't know if it's going to take some time or not. So those are my 5 very quick bullet points. Keep recruiting and developing your strengths to your strengths. Turn your weaknesses into strengths at all the skill positions. Okay? Infrastructure improvements to get modern on level with the other top 10 programs. Smooth staff integration and delegation of roles, strengths and weaknesses. And finally, do everything you can to encourage and cultivate that Marcus Freeman touch. That's what I'm looking at short term. What did I miss? What do you guys think? Feel free to let me know. Have a good one.